Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Killers, Kings, and Clowns, the Underworld podcast. I'm Paul Whitcomb. I'm with John William Toohey and Camillus Robinson. This is part two of an interview with a very knowledgeable man and a great oral storyteller. He just really draws you into his knowledge of this world. And we're talking about the impact of his father's chosen profession as a juice loan maker and killer for the outfit, and how it impacted him as a young man, as a member of his family, Frank Calabrese Jr. Thank you for being here, Frank.
Thank you.
We're on part two. We talked earlier quite a bit about your father, who he was, how you grew up, and we got to the point where you were in prison at Milan with your father. And we talked a little bit about how after a 20-year process, you came to begin to realize that you had only two choices. And one of them was to cooperate with the government. How was it when you were thinking about writing that letter to the FBI?
Well, it was the hardest because in my neighborhood, cooperating with they were the enemy. They were the enemy. And now I'm going to work with the enemy. Can I trust them? Can they trust me? You know, I've talked with the FBI agents that I worked with, especially one, Mike Maseth. We talk, you know, this was a hard relationship because we had to trust each other in a short period of time, sitting in a prison room, nobody knowing that we're talking, and we had to, you know, build some kind of relationship. And so I sat down and I really thought this out. How am I going to do this? You know, I didn't want to be obligated. I didn't want to get other people in trouble. My job, I shouldn't say my job. My goal was to just keep my dad locked up. My goal wasn't to take down the mob, not some righteous person. I just wanted to, for me and the people around me, family members, to be able to start our life over again. So that was what the reason was behind it. So I thought to not be obligated, if I do all my time, if I pay all my fines, that I might have a little more leverage with them. And that's how I started it out.
Frank, you talked about how you were raised to think the government was the enemy and that cooperating was the last thing you could do. But prior to you, really only one man with the kind of information you had ever cooperated against the Chicago mob, and that's Lenny Patrick. Mm-hmm. Were you aware of him, and what did you think of him, and how was he talked about?
Well, Lenny Patrick, Frank Collada was talked a lot about because he was close around us. You know, my dad knew him, knew his brother, the barber. So, you know, Lenny Patrick, I didn't know anything about. You know, sometimes when they look at something like that, they say, oh, well, he's not Italian, that's why.
Yeah.
So I really never paid much attention. What I did pay attention about with Lenny Patrick was what I learned, what my dad learned and my uncle and me, we learned about a law that the government had. There was this law that they brought into effect that they can lock up a criminal organization for a 10-year investigation if they feel that a cooperating witness or somebody there's a threat against their life. Because when Lenny Patrick's daughter had the car, I think it was blown up or something happened to her car,
or BMW.
Was okay. All the mob lawyers, the government got a hold of all the mob lawyers and told them. So word was sent out from the bosses to stay away, don't go nowhere near anybody in that family. So it's funny how you know the rules can change really quick. So I thought that was interesting. So I realized that the government had a lot of power. You know, I was raised to not trust them, but to show respect. And the reason my dad used to say that was because you don't want to make it personal. He says, you see in the movies, guys spit at them, guys will yell at them, guys. He says, you don't want to make it personal. You want the FBI, you want to be like the FBI. You want them to think that you're their friend. You know, I'm doing your job. You want them to go back and say, you know, Calabrese ain't really a bad guy. You know,
so don't make the same mistake that Sam Giancana made by infuriating the FBI.
Right, more like a Carter. So it was always said on the street with Romer, that Romer was trying to play a Carter, but that a Carter was playing Romer back. So they had a relationship based on a bunch of lies. He told Romer what he wanted Romer to know, and Romer told him what he wanted to know. So it was, I guess, like business, like most businesses would do. So, yeah, and so that's what we were taught. So It was more of my concern was this. This is going to take at least 10 years. So the guys I'm going to start with, you know, what they're telling me 8 years down the line, it may change. You know, and I've seen that a couple times. So the FBI and the prosecutor, everybody started with Mitch Mars was an unbelievable smart man. I was in awe at how smart this man was. He dedicated his career. John Scully, I had a relationship with. John was a nice guy too. And you know, everything they told me, they kept to. Okay, one of it was, okay, I don't want to involve any of my legitimate friends or any family members. If you guys interview them, if you question them, if you indict them, I'm done. I'll do 20 years in jail before I cooperate. Another thing was at a point when I decided to go out on the street and wear a wire against a couple of guys to show what my father was doing, one agreement was that they were going to be unindicted co-conspirators. And they were unindicted co-conspirators. A couple of them wound up getting up on the stand. So it was not my intention to hurt anybody else. Okay, and I don't believe I did hurt anybody else.
And one of those people who was never mentioned turns out to be John DeFranco. Any insight into that?
Yeah, like I had said earlier, it's in inner circles on the street. There's a lot of belief that John DeFranco was cooperating with the government, that he was the one high-ranking undercover informant that they had.
Top echelon.
Yeah.
Top echelon, yeah.
Yeah, top echelon. Yeah.
Well, that's as top as you get.
So when the FBI first came out to Milan, Michigan, you got to understand that the hard part about this is that prison, the walls speak. It's small. I had to get to a building where they were without anybody seeing me going down this hallway in this building to this door to go upstairs. I actually spoke to them when they came about dressing a certain way so you don't look like FBI agents coming in. You know, dress more preppy, like, you know, you're young guys. But, when I found out later that Tom Bourgeois was the one I wrote the letter to, if you read the letter. Now, the reason I wrote him the letter, I didn't know anybody, but his name was on my PSI stuff as the FBI agent and part of the case. So that's why I wrote him. And when I talk about writing the letter, I did everything my dad taught me. You know, I wore gloves, no fingerprints, type it, no handwriting. Don't put anything personal in there. If it gets intercepted, I can say, Dad, somebody's trying to set me up. It's just general stuff. It took them months to come out. I didn't even know if they were going to come out. And their concern was, what do I want? At first, they thought I was doing bad time. And then they realized this guy's not doing bad time. In fact, the second time they came back, I'm in excellent shape. I look great. That's what they're looking at. Is this kid worn down? Is he having a hard time? So they brought Mitch Mars out. They actually brought Mitch out. He sat with me. And when he left that day, he says, don't bring this kid in front of a grand jury. Just work with him. He's fine. So I never went in front of a grand jury. Everything, and I worked with them the way. And they gave me a lot of leeway to lead what I was doing. And they trusted me at some point because it was working.
So what's going on with your family? I mean, they didn't know any of this until the indictments came out, right?
Yeah, I couldn't keep. I had to keep it in the dark. I couldn't trust anybody. You know, for the simple reason that I couldn't take that chance. You know, I even told the FBI. I said, look, don't keep bringing people. You know, we've had people. We had a person in the FBI that would feed us information. He gave us some good information a couple of times. You know, we don't know if it was plotted like that or if he did it on his own. But still, I can't take a chance. I'm in prison. If somebody sees me go to a certain room and I come out, I'm not going to know until I'm dead on the prison yard. When I decided to wear a wire on the prison yard, the warden didn't want to okay it. This kind of stuff don't go on in prison. This guy's going to get killed. Right. When I was able to wear it, I never realized this. They told me later on when we were talking. When I left that room with the FBI agents, I had a wire. They couldn't monitor me. I was on my own. I was gone. They said, we'd sit in there sometimes for 5 hours waiting for you. We were waiting, either you were coming back or the prison alarm went off that you're dead in prison. You know, and, you know, my dad is very smart. You know, a lot of old timer ways he has, you know, checking you for wires, everything. So I was able to tell them, give them ideas of the kind of wires to make for me. And they went to Quantico and they made them, you know. So we built a relationship. We weren't friends, it was a business relationship. You know, we're not sitting there talking about families and buddies. It's not social hour. I mean, it was a job. In fact, one time they brought one agent and the other agents talk about it forever. I just got back from meeting with my dad. You know, you got to understand, I'm talking to my dad here. I'm putting him away forever. And another thing is we're talking about a relationship. That's hard on your mind. I go back to myself sometimes and tears be coming down my eyes. I wouldn't sleep a wink all night because I'm like, this is how sick it got. And the guy's offering me cookies and he thinks it's all a joke. And the other agent, because I just looked at him like, you know, and I didn't say anything. I'm like, are you fucking crazy? You want to give me a cookie? What am I, your doggy? You know, but the other guys, I guess they laughed about it. It was a huge impact on them for a long time. We just, you know, we built a relationship, and it till this day, it was a business relationship. That's it. You know, there's no friendship.
But obviously you trusted them.
Yeah, I think we should also circle back to, you know, what people would say, well, why wouldn't you trust the FBI? I think when you look at the history, in the 80s, Cleveland had Jerry Rabinowitz, who was a secretary for the mob, and she gave up mob informants. She was working for the FBI. She was a secretary, and she was able to get the names of people who were informing for the FBI, and she got the names of people who were working with Chicago on the Operation Pendorf with Joey Lombardo and Alan Dorfman. She was working in Cleveland during this trial. Frank, as you know, when later your uncle was in hiding, they had a U.S. Marshal. Everything all right?
Yeah, we're good. I just lost sound for a minute.
Okay, sorry. I thought I didn't have sound. So, you know, the mob had a U.S. Marshal at this time. So it's not enough to just assume, well, they're FBI agents, so they can be trusted. Not only did you grow up that the government is the enemy, but there's so many instances of the mafia actually having not just law enforcement, but federal law enforcement under their belts. So this was really a huge risk that you were taking, and they had a lot to do to prove to you that you would be safe and that you could trust them. So it was really a heavy burden on you to turn on your family, and like you said, to go to the enemy, but just to know that you were safe with guys you've seen could be turned.
Yeah, and I never felt safe. It wasn't about that. It was about, you
No,
know,
but,
it was about what I had to do. I was willing.
Right.
You know, I even offered to go back in prison for a while one time with my dad. And they're like, you know, it sounds great and dandy to us. It would probably be unbelievable. But legalities, we would, if something happened to you, it would,
yeah.
You know. So my determination, yeah. And, you know, one thing I learned from my dad, trust no one. You know, the old scorpion and the frog. You know, I even have a tattoo on my arm about it. You know, it's need to know. I need to trust myself, and that's it. And I need to, you know, I needed to do what I needed to do. And my dad taught me, when you're, and I imagine in the military too, when you have a task to do, you worry about task at hand. You train for that task, you prepare for the task. You don't sit down and think about what could happen. You just do what you got to do and be ready. And that's what I put in my head when I was there. It's not about what could happen. I know what could happen, but you know what? I had a job to do and I had to finish it. Sadly, I had to do against my own father, which was the hardest, you know. It'll never be easy. And I'll never have an easy day because you always wonder, could there have been another way? And that was another thing I was doing while I was doing this. I sat down for months. There's got to be another way. There's got to be another way.
Yeah. Frank, let me ask you, in that, when it was over, and even today, you know, there's some clown somewhere in the mob, some wise guy. Do you fear that they're going to, you know, this guy took out his father, I'm going to shoot him? I mean, was that ever a concern for you? Because, you know.
Well, it's always a concern. I got lucky in some ways, is that there was a lot of guys out there that would have came after me that either a couple of them got killed and the rest died naturally in a short period of time.
Yeah.
Now, read my book. If you've been on my tours, I am not taking you around and saying Joe and Tony over here are doing this and that. I am not, you know, I'm telling a family story on my tours. I respect the guys who are out there. Honestly, when I first came back to Chicago, I wasn't sure. I had my guard up, but I'm not one to run and hide. I'm not getting in anybody else's business. You know, if somebody wants to get me, they can get presidents, they say. So, you know, there's always that chance. You know, my dad put a $150,000 hit on my head when he was still alive. Okay, that was big. You know, the FBI had to let me know. Okay, people on the street, some people were saying, yeah, well, you know what, your dad didn't like to pay. And number two, a lot of people say, yeah, we liked Junior better than Senior when we dealt with him. Yeah. So I've gotten a lot of guys that say, you know, I don't necessarily agree with what you did, but I've worked with your father. I've been around your father. He's a very difficult man. People tell me that things are a lot better now because these guys are gone. They were, you know, you're talking about guys that come up to you and tell you, you got to start paying me, you know, $1,000, $2,000 a month. And if you don't, they're going to ruin your life, right? Yeah. So and I'm talking about guys who are making legitimate money. So I hear sometimes that I did a lot of people a favor. The mafia is a thing of the past with the Italian-American mafia. A lot of people have moved on. There's a lot of guys that were in the life that were younger that have moved on to legitimate things. They're making money. I'm not getting in anybody's pockets. I'm not getting in anybody in trouble. I don't care what anybody's doing. You know, sometimes people start to tell me about stuff. I say, I don't want to hear it. They say, why? I said, because if I hear it and somebody hears I heard it, they're going to more automatically think I'm the one that said it. I don't want to hear it. It doesn't, you know, I had guys come up to me, ask me to do something when I got back. And I says, you know, I cooperated against my dad. Yeah, but that was between you and your dad. You've always been good with me. I said, no, I'm sorry. You know, I don't want to hear it. So there's always that chance that somebody could come up. You know, now that I do tours more than ever, I've had a few people get in my car, one guy with a backpack, you know, and, you know, I says, here, let me put the backpack in the back seat here so we got more room. Why don't you sit in the front seat, you know? I'm not challenging anybody. I'm not standing in the corner with my muscles. There's certain places I won't go in. I respect what some people are capable of, but I'm not one to run and hide either. This is between me and my dad. If you want to get in the middle of it, then, you know, do what you got to do.
Yeah, Frank, let's quell a rumor that I read. In fact, there's so much out there about you. You and your brother Kurt are at ends. You don't talk. You fight. Blah, blah. What's the story? What's the truth? What's going on?
So I have two brothers, Kurt and Nikki. Me and Kurt, we are brothers. We do not fight. Sometimes we have the same disagreements that brothers have. One thing that was very important to us over time was to learn how to get through all this as family, even though we might not agree. So me and my brother sit down sometimes and we'll butt heads. We don't raise our voices, not disrespectful, we'll butt heads. There's times sometimes we might not talk for a month or two because we don't agree on something. But in the end, we all sit at the family table. We respect one another. He's my brother. I'm his brother, all three of us. And, you know, it's very important to us, you know, you know, my brother Kurt has been through a lot, okay? My dad put my brother Kurt in a lot of positions that my brother didn't deserve to be in. And my brother goes through a lot right now with that. And he's having a hard time dealing with that. You know, think about it. You know, why would your dad do stuff to you? Me and my dad, we did stuff to each other, okay? My brother never did nothing to my dad other than go to jail with him, for him.
Is he getting help? Is he professional?
Yeah, you know, and that's for him to talk about. And I know that he's involved in a lot of projects and stuff. And you know, I can tell you one thing he asked me, how do you do it? And I told him the way I found how to do it. You know, not only did I have to get past this, but, you know, the day I went in prison, I thought I was never going to do cocaine again. But I didn't know. It's been 97 now, okay? It's the most embarrassing thing I ever did. But I talk about it because you have to own it, okay? And I got past it.
What gets me, Frank, is I think, you know, I'm sorry, John, but I think that the average family has problems, but I think that because of the spotlight that's been placed on you because of the trial and because of who your father is and just the mystique of the mafia, I think that it's got to be hard for y'all because any disagreements you have as brothers is going to be blown up into this oh, like John said, they're at war. They're these two brothers, these mob. I think that that's got to put an extra burden on any sort of disagreement or anything that y'all have. I think that probably shines an extra spotlight. Like John said, there's rumors and people talk online. So I think that puts an extra bit of pressure sometimes.
Sure, my brother will get online. He'll get on stuff. Sometimes he'll say, "I disagree with my brother. That's not the story." Okay, and he has the right to say that. And
social media is going to blow that up.
Talked about. It's you see it one way, I see it another way, but we can. At the end of the day, it's okay. I'm not trying to convince him. He's not trying. We both have our reasons why we see it a certain way. And it's more important for us. But sure, people like to see the drama. They would love to see a reality show of me and my brother going at each other or anything. Ain't gonna happen.
Let me ask you two things. I would tell you, as a therapist, and she deals in trauma, childhood trauma that develops. Well, I'm really interested in what you're saying, and I hear about it every day, or not specifics, and they can help people, as you know. I don't want to cross the line here, but you have two daughters, right?
No, my daughter, Kurt, has two daughters and a stepson.
And you?
I have a boy and a girl. So my daughter is just turning 30. My son's turning 29.
So, my boy asked me about my father and my mother. I'm selective. They're dead. How do you deal with it? How do you say, yeah, this guy, or do you, yeah, but there was the other half?
It's very hard. One thing that me and my brother agree on 100% is our kids are the most important thing in our life. Yeah. Okay, I can never take back any pain or anything my kids went through while I was in prison. It rips me apart. My kids laugh and they tell me, Dad, you should go to counseling. For you, we're okay. You have a hard time letting go. You got to let go. So my daughter is my voice of reason, and so is my son. And I look up to both of them. And both of them have nothing of this life in them. They weren't around it. My son chose for a while not to know a lot of stuff because he didn't want to know about it. My daughter had a hard time, like when she talked about on Nightline, was watching, Godfather, stuff like that. But I got a second chance at life with my kids.
Yeah.
They love me. They've seen me for the last 20 years, who I've become, how hard I work. They're so proud of me. Their mother, my ex-wife, who we're still friends, we're still close. One day Anthony was like, Dad this or Dad that. And Kelly's like, to really understand, my ex-wife was like, to really understand your dad, you know him now, you need to know how he was before and what he went through to get to where he is now. So when I was writing the book, my son, I had him help me, on the computer because he's very smart and everything. And then when I went to LA and working on some stuff, I would bring him as my assistant, just so he get to know me. So my relationship with my kids is very good. They're close with their cousins. My brother Kurt's kids, they're all close because they can relate, because they've been through the same thing. Kurt, his kids are the most important thing to him, it's hard because you don't want to affect what you're going through. You don't want it to affect them because it does, right? If they see you down, if they see you depressed, if they see you, so it's hard, but we have the chance to work at that every day. So I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world, for where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Kids make a difference and they're resilient.
Yeah. And I told my brother, we grew up around a lot of legitimate friends that have done very well for themselves. And I says, Kurt, don't let that bother you. Don't compare to where you're at right now because we went through a lot. I says, just own what you do. If you're going to clean toilets, be the best toilet cleaner. Your friends will respect you for that. It's the same thing here. Right now, I'm working at the Marriott out here, okay? This is what I do when I'm not doing my stuff. I started at the bottom, and I worked my way up. I learned computers because I had to know. I took a computer class in prison so I could learn computers.
Good for you.
I am very lucky.
And also, it's, and I have to go through this every day. No matter how many times you go over it, you're not going to change it.
Right.
and you think about, and you get, it's a matter of living in trauma of right now, right? And you have to stop yourself from going back there.
Yeah.
There ain't nothing back there except pain and misery. We tend to forget. It's easy to remember some of the good times, but inevitably the bad times take over, and it's a waste of life, man. It's
Yeah, you do it. Everybody has a different way of letting it go. So what might work for me might not work for my brother or
Right.
somebody else. So
Yeah.
I talk about what works for me,
Yeah. Yeah. I never did talk, and I had 2 heart attacks. I couldn't eat spicy food. Yeah. Well, I kept it in, and then my wife said, "Look, this isn't working."
Right.
And you know what? That changed everything. Really, it changed everything. So.
No, I got out of jail and I had this plan. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I got all this stuff. And all of a sudden I start getting drop foot. I get diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and rheumatoid arthritis. So I was like, that's it. I can't feel sorry for myself. I'm going to be the poster child for MS. I'm going to be the guy that's going to walk till I'm 80 and say, look, see, I beat it. I did what I had to do. I'm doing it. And, because that's the hand I was dealt, and I'm going to make the best of it.
So
How is your health right now? How is your health right now, Frank?
My health,
How you feeling? You doing pretty well?
I went to the neurologist 2 years ago. So when I got the MS, I was going to Loyola in Chicago, in Elmhurst, and the neurologist was like, you have the slow deteriorating. He says, and whatever you're doing, because I came out of prison in such good shape and so healthy, eating healthy, he says, just keep doing it for right now. You'll come back, we'll see what'll happen. And I'm not going to put you on any meds or studies because it's just going to eat your body away. So I moved out to Arizona, and I just learned to deal with it, with my legs, losing the muscle, and I just would work out all the time. So 17 years later, I come back to Chicago, and I go see one of the best neurologists in the state, and he's on the state board, everything up in Northbrook, and he says, he goes, unbelievable. He says, I don't know what you're doing. He says, but it's been dormant. He goes, and just keep doing what you're doing. He goes, I do a lot of Chicago Bears. He goes, you have no muscle, no nothing in your legs. He goes, but you've learned to compensate. He says, your upper body's strong like some of these football players. He said, but I'm not going to put you in any studies. He goes, your MS is not active. He says, it hasn't been active. He said, I don't think it's going to be active anymore. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to grow old like most people.
Oh, good for you. That's wonderful.
So I fall once in a while because I'll trip, but I've learned to fall where I don't hurt myself.
Yeah.
The most thing is the embarrassing that I fall. I want to get up right away and say, okay, it's okay, it's okay. Some days when my arthritis is bothering me too, I use a cane. That has been less and less as I've went on. So I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just want to be, inspiration to other people that, we're all going to get dealt shit in life.
Mm-hmm.
The way to get around it. It's going to make you who you are.
Yeah. I'm also, I got one leg, basically. I walk on one leg. I have 2 legs, but.
Right. But you've learned to compensate with the one, right? So.
Yeah. I gave up my hopes of tap dance and,
Yeah, I had to give up a lot too, but then I found other things. They wanted to put a brace on my leg. And I said, if you put a brace on my leg for my footfall, and those muscles are going to be gone. So I said, no, I'll figure it out. And that's what I did. And I think by doing that, because sometimes the doctors ain't always right. I just didn't want to give in to that. I didn't want to be on any drugs. I didn't want to give in to anything. So I got a cane and I keep working out.
Good. So you can drive around and the tour.
I drive everything, yeah. When I came home from prison, I started driving a semi in the city because I needed to get work. I needed to do something that I could do anywhere in the country.
Let me ask you a nosy question. But even you said yourself, your dad had gobs of money hanging around over here and everything. And then we got the Hanley family. That guy, Mr. Hanley, he probably did okay. What happened? Where did the money go?
I believe his ex-wife got a lot of it. I'm sure there's some other people that were holding it for him. People all the time telling me. I had one distant family member say, hey, at the cemetery, Queen in Heaven, how they didn't bury this, that, there, I bet you there's something there. I got this thing. Do you want to go? And I just looked and I said, no. I says, I don't want to go. I believe the money's cursed. there's money somewhere. I don't care. You know, it's,
Well,
I done that. Ain't going to do it again. Okay. It's
Yeah.
just, I don't know. I hope whoever has the majority of it, or whoever that they really need it, and they do the right thing with it.
yeah, yeah.
I'd like to see my mother get something because my dad didn't leave her with anything. Okay. He manipulated her, controlled it. She's got a heart of gold, and she really caught the raw end of the deal. But you'll never hear my mother badmouth them. She just never.
Isn't there a story that your dad had all kinds of money stashed in the wall of a house up in Wisconsin or something like that, or stashed in the walls?
He was, no, it was buried. It was buried.
Buried.
Yeah, it was buried, and then they didn't put it in anything but duffel bags, and then it got all moldy. So we had to go out and change it out. We're talking about, maybe $1 million.
Wow.
There was another story that, and it was more of a setup that that I went up to the cottage because he had a lot of money in there, and I robbed him, and I took that, and I took cars, a bunch of his antique cars. So in court, they brought all these people that bought these cars and everything, and the government was concerned to say, Frank, if you did this, please just tell us it's going to come out. I said, no, I didn't. But they're bringing the people that I says, I'm telling you, I have nothing to do with it. They had a big picture of me up on the screen, and the people are like, no, he's not the guy. And they're trying to describe the guy, and it's all different guys and whatever. And I think it was another setup by my dad. So he was looking for something to, he wanted to take the focus of the trial away from the tapes and the murder.
Try and discredit you.
He had his lawyer start asking me about money. So you said you stole 800,000, what did you do? I said, look, I stole a lot of money, and I blew it up. And if anybody was in the court, they seen it. So he kept trying to break it down to try to catch me in a lie or something. The judge finally said, hey, I don't care if he took 800,000 or 2 million. We have it that he took money from his dad and he blew it. Don't ask him no more questions about it. So he was constantly trying to detour from it.
Yeah.
We kind of skipped over something that's just fascinating to me, and that is that first moment, that first day when you're in the witness stand, and you had your father's looking right at you, and who else is in the courtroom, and what was that moment like for you? Was your family in the courtroom? What were you thinking, and what were you feeling?
Okay, so my family, I didn't want any of my family there. He didn't want any of his family there. Okay, so my ex-wife, the kids, they were out here in Arizona. My mother wasn't there. My brother Kurt was there. He was sitting in the gallery. My brother Nicky wound up coming later during the trial, but he sat in another room and listened to it. So when I was brought in to Chicago, I didn't sleep. I might have slept 1 or 2 nights. All I did, they wanted to get me on the stand. It was right before the 4th of July. So they had me on the stand for an hour. And I asked the night before to go sit in the courtroom, if I could sit in the courtroom for a while. So they had to get the marshals, this big official thing. And I sat in the courtroom in that chair for about a half hour and looked around the courtroom and looked where my father was going to be sitting and everything like that. I wanted to get a feel for it. The next day when I went in there, they told me, go up in front of the judge and raise your right hand. So I walk up to the judge and I step up on the platform and I'm right in his face. I'm not on the witness chair. And later on, they were all laughing at me, but I didn't know. I raised my right hand. I'm right in his face, and I'm repeating after him. And I sit down, and I'm like, why did you go up like that? I said, you told me to go in front of him. I don't know where I'm going. I wouldn't make eye contact with my father because the emotions, I should say I didn't make eye contact with him, but I glanced over. And there's my dad who's aged. I haven't seen him in 6 years. And I'm ready to put this man away for his life. I was just so overcome with emotion because I'm his protector, but I'm also his prosecutor. Yeah. I sat down and I was probably the worst witness there was for, first of all, the judge told me they had the microphone. I kept grabbing it, like that, and the whole courtroom's going like that. That's how nervous I was. I got out of there. The next 3 days, I sat with Mitch Myers and Mike Mesa and John Scully in the war room in the FBI's floor, and all I did was go over everything and prepare myself for the rest of the case. And when I went back in there 3 days later, I was ready. The emotion was past me, and this was all business. And yeah, I'll never forget all that. It was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. You know, the glance that me and my father had at one point, you know, like, you know, father and son that hadn't seen each other for years, and here's the whole world watching this.
How long were you on the stand, Frank?
Oh gosh, I think it was almost a week.
Must have been the longest week of your life.
Yeah.
It was long. It was long. Now, the prosecutors have people in the gallery that are there to see how everything's going. So they'll critique it at the end of it. So the first day was on there, me and John. So John Scully was the one that was handling me. So we were getting up there, we're showing the transcripts, and we're playing videos and all that. And John would ask me questions. So at the end of that day, the people are like, that's not working. We're confused. It's not working. So I came up with an idea, and I told John, why don't we do it like this? Why don't you play the tape? You know, it'd be like, you know, maybe 4 paragraphs. I'll say what I feel about what he said during that 4 paragraphs, and then you can ask me questions after. He goes, okay, let's try that. So I would sit there while I'm playing the tape, and I'd use my fingers. Okay, I'm going to talk about that on that part. I'm going to talk about that. And then as I'm answering it after, I'm touching my fingers to remember. And they came back and they said, that's perfect. It's working perfect. So that's what we did the rest of the time.
It was a lot of translation, wasn't it, Frank? Because the code that your father spoke, it was so intricate. I've heard some, even when he was talking to Tuan Doyle and all, but hearing you and your father speak, it's almost, if you didn't know what you were talking about, you know, you're talking about going to her house, and it's just incredible how intricate the two of you were speaking.
Well, the video that you'll see on YouTube, it's called The Curly Girl, and they show the video, and they played that at the trial. It's with me and Ralph Peluso, and it says we're talking about recipes. So me and John Scully are sitting there going over everything, and he's like, okay, at this part, you guys are talking about recipes, right? I go, no, that's code for this and this and this. He goes, oh, okay. And then he goes, okay, and this part is code? I go, no, that's really a recipe. Because you guys were good. Still getting confused. And it was good. I mean, somebody says, Jesus, it sounds like you're having a conversation about 6 different people, you and your dad. And all we're talking about is me with 4 different code names. But yeah, it was, so what I would do, now this is the biggest thing for any legal people is, you know, you can't testify to a conversation if you weren't present, right? As soon as you get up there to start testifying against that conversation or for that conversation, they're gonna reject it.
Hearsay.
Yes. So sometimes I think I got hit in the head too many times. So Mitch Mars tells me you're going to get up there and you're going to talk about the conversation between your dad, Doyle, and Mike Rickey about the purse, about the glove, and all that. He says, and I want you to say in your own words what you think the conversation is. They're gonna probably knock you off right away, but it's worth trying. What was the word that I was looking for?
It's hearsay, isn't it? Hearsay. Hearsay.
Yeah. So I get up there, start talking. The lawyers jump up. I got to go in the other room. They have a sidebar. Mitch walks in, not like, all right. He walks in. He goes, all right, come on back in. You're going to testify to that. So Zagel, everything I testified to, he's behind me. He's got the transcripts. He's just looking for one thing, a very smart, just one thing that's out of line, knowing that I might not be telling the truth. And he knew I was telling the truth on everything. Do you know he let it go? He said, no, bring it back in. They tried to appeal it, but they lost. So I would say is, during my conversations with my dad or any of these guys, purse meant this. This is what my understanding. And it was unbelievable because the lawyers couldn't believe it. I mean, that's how smart Mitch was. You know, and that was huge. That was huge.
He was a very, very good lawyer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he died way too young.
Yeah, he's very young.
At the end, you have your cross and your recross. So they had my Uncle Nick up there, and they did the recross. Is that, am I saying the right words? Anybody?
Yes.
Know?
Yeah.
Okay. And you can only recross on what they talked about on the cross. And Mitch got up there and he says, when's the last time you seen your nephew or talked to your nephew? So he gives him a date from, you know, before we went to jail. And he says, have you ever seen any of the transcripts or heard any of the tapes? He said, no. He said, that's it. He sat down. They couldn't recross on anything because all they'd have to ask about is the tapes. Now we knew that the lawyers were staying away from the tapes because they were all loaded. So they didn't even want the tapes to be played because they heard them. They knew what was going on. So it was really a chess game. And in the legal world, it was a great trial to watch because it was the first time they used the RICO Act the way it was supposed to be used. And that's to go after an organization, and instead of individuals. Even the guy that wrote the act, I think he was a professor at
Robert Blakey. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a professor at Notre Dame or something, was he? Or
yeah, Notre Dame. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was all over it too because he kept telling the government, "You're not using this right. You're not using this right." And it was the first time in Chicago they used right. Because remember, they used it in New York.
New York, yeah.
Yeah, and it worked. So it was.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, that's a.
Yeah, I did. I learned a lot there, but it was probably the hardest time in my life, when there was a break or a recess or what, and we're all sitting in there and they're doing something, I just sat with my head down. First of all, these guys sitting in this room, I respected what they were capable of. They're not my problem, but, it's still, this, and then there's my dad sitting over there. Everybody's talking to everybody, joking around. I'm just sitting there, and it's just, I wanted to be anywhere but there.
Yeah.
Frank, I'm sorry.
Most people that cooperate never think it's going to make it to court. I knew this was going to court.
Yeah.
Frank, when the jury went out to deliberate, did it ever cross your mind that they might acquit your father?
Oh, I didn't. I made a comment, and I was asked to stop making that comment. First of all, I told the FBI, if you guys get a deal with my dad and he's out, I can guarantee you that I will be at that prison door with a shotgun waiting for him the second he comes out, because that's my best odds of getting him. And they go, "You can't talk like that." I said, "Well, that's the way it is." They said, "The only way we'd give your dad a deal is if he knew where Hoffa was buried and we found the body, and if he could prove he killed Kennedy." That's what they told me. And also, I learned later on that they profiled.
That's the high standard.
Yeah, that's setting the bar.
Yeah. So, actually, every year I would go to Las Vegas with a bunch of friends, opening football weekend for a couple of days. We're getting older. We sit around, just watch some games, have some coffee, a beer or something, and talk. And they happened to come back the days I was out there. And I remember I was sitting by Caesars by the pool, and it was all over the news everywhere. And I just had to go sit in a room by myself for a couple hours. And it just, it wasn't like, yay, it was just part of that whole, this is just, some days I wish my dad could be sitting here right now, and, I could be taking care of him. He's older now, and, I lost that. I lost that. I wish that when we both had a chance on that prison yard, because they had no idea what we were involved in. Okay, we were going to go home in a few years. He was going to come home, and we could have lived the rest of our lives. So there's always a part of me that just, if he would have just tried to change like I did and like everybody else wanted to.
Yeah, it wasn't going to happen, though, I don't think.
No, it was not. It was not. He was too far gone.
I ask you, so your father, after you moved out, and so what, did you talk again, or was that?
No, the government made sure that we would never be able to. Look, the last time I talked to my father, we were either going to work it out in the prison yard before I started cooperating, or we were never going to talk again. There was no reason for me to talk because of the fact that he would just manipulate me again. He didn't change. He wasn't going to change. Okay. My father's favorite day, I'll close like this. My father's favorite day of the year was Christmas. He was very generous at Christmas. Christmas was his favorite day. Okay, done a lot of stuff for a lot of people at Christmas. I get a phone call. My dad dies Christmas Day, locked in a cell like an animal in a terrorist lockdown for years. He dies at Christmas Day of heart failure. Now, my dad was a strong man. I honestly, he manipulated religion and everything. I honestly believe that day, and some people tell me I'm crazy for it, but I believe that day that my father finally got it. And I do believe he's above me. I do believe he's watching me, and he's saying, "Hey, you little motherfucker, I'm watching you. I know you better than everybody. You better do the right thing." So I answer to him. I've had my daughter, Well, without getting my daughter involved in this, because she likes to give us, so there is a very big name medium, okay, that, and anytime my daughter's friends with her, and she's told my daughter a handful of times, if you know, your grandfather is always in my ear whenever your dad's around, and if he wants to talk to him, we'll do it, you know. And you know, I'm like, wow, you know, I would love to, but then the downside of that, and people had said, he goes, you know, your dad never changed. How do you know he's not going to try to manipulate you again? Why don't you just let it be, do what you're doing, you know? And that's what I'm doing, because, you know, how do I know that he's not manipulating me to try to get me to do something wrong again, so that I can wind up with him for eternity? You know?
Well, two things is I think all of us whose father we had a difficult time, they passed on. We all feel that way. You know, you look back, it's just, you know, if I had just not been such a loudmouth moron, I had, you know, and if he had not done, and
Yeah.
everyone who has a dad that was, and a lot of us did, who was a difficult guy, we feel, but also I think, you know, I wouldn't listen to the people. He is, you know, and he is probably, I'm a Roman Catholic, he's in heaven, and, you know, that's good therapy for you. You know, I lost a brother. I wasn't able to deal with, and he just, I don't care what people say. Talk to him a lot, and I have fake conversations with him, and it makes me feel a hell of a lot better, Frank.
I talk to him all the time. Well, let me tell you something. You know, I have that criminal mentality, okay? And I talk about this at the end of the chore community. You know, I have to process every day. Okay, this is in your blood. You just don't wake up at one morning and say, oh, that's it, it's out of your blood. You know, I see things that other people don't see. I was good at what I did. I never got caught for anything. And it's not bragging in a good way. It's actually a curse to me. So I have to step back, and I have to process when I start thinking like that. I see something and I'm like, oh my God, that'd be like taking candy from a kid. You know, so I have to step back and process. One of the things I use is having to wind up with my father in hell for eternity. You know, that's one of the things. And then I also look at, I'd be worse than my dad if I went back to, I'm a hypocrite. I'm, you know, I could be the lowest scum of the earth if I do it. So, you know, I find my ways of processing, so I don't do it. And I've been doing that for 20 years. You know, I'll tell you one funny story in closing is I'm working at the hotel before my book came out, and I'm with this younger guy, and I told you I go to these Vegas trips. Well, my friends are very well off. So they're gambling maybe 20, 30,000. I gamble $20, but that's, you know, I can gamble what I can afford. And the guy says, oh, Frank, you know my friend Larry that drives the white Hummer? I says, yeah, he lives in Paradise Valley. I says, yeah. He says he goes to Vegas all the time too. In fact, he behind the picture in his front room, he has a safe. And sometimes we go over there drinking, he opens it up. He always keeps 300,000 to 500,000 in there. He goes, why don't you come? We'll go there Friday. I'll show it to you. You know what I'm hearing? Oh my God. One more time, right? What do we say? One more time and I'm good. I had to step back and process. Then I told the kid, I says, hey, don't be an idiot. You almost got your friend hurt or in trouble. And then I told him that he was just sitting there like this. I says, don't do that. You know, I wanted to go tell a friend, and don't be showing everybody where you keep your money. People breaking houses for that. So yeah, and I think I'm being tested.
I salute.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a great story to wrap that up with, starting out everything you went through, everything you did, everything your father tried to make you into, and now you are able to see that criminal thinking process happen and step outside of it and truly be a different person.
Yeah.
So few people can do that, Frank.
Versus 500,000. Yeah, it took some processing.
Right.
Dealing with a former Bonanno guy who went into the witness protection, blah, blah, blah. And we're eating at a deli in my neighborhood, and there's only us in the hall, you know. And the bill came, and some guy left a $50 tip. I don't know why. I can't believe this. He took the money. In other words, he ended up giving the 20, he took the 50, but he did it in such a way in small bills. I just thought, the hell are you? A, I live here. B, really? Did you really just do that? But that's his he can't get out of it, man.
Yeah, it's an addiction. It's a high.
Yeah, yeah. He's been kicked out of the program since, by the way. So, interesting guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting people that.
Oh,
I have a support group with a lot of guys from New York, Vegas, all that were in the life. A lot of names you'll see out there and stuff. And sometimes we have calls because, you know, when I call it a support group, because we understand. So when we have stuff that happens to us, like one of the guys was telling me that you know, something had happened to him and it was like somebody handed him money and he's looking around for cameras thinking this guy, you know.
yeah.
So we actually talk each other out of it. But when we have talked with a lot of people about doing a roundtable where we just sit down and we talk about stories that you never hear, like we're talking about today, not who was the boss, who was the underboss, more about, you know, and we've done this on the phone, and we haven't tried Zoom yet, but you would die laughing. And, you know,
Yeah.
we talked with different stations and stuff. So I'm working on a movie project right now. I have a deal. It was
Right.
supposed to start filming in the fall, but because of this, it's got pushed back. But yeah, it's funny because we have some great stories. It's unbelievable, and we've talked about taping it.
Geez, you do that. If you need help,
Yeah, an ex-mom support group. Oh my God, Frank. Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's the basis of a good comedy,
Oh my God.
doesn't it?
yeah. You know, one of my favorite movies is My Blue Heaven with Steve Martin.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm salivating at thinking about the potential of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, My Blue Heaven. That's literally the sequel to Goodfellas. I think not many people know that.
So Nora Ephron wrote it, who was married
Yeah.
to Nick Pileggi, which Nick gave a blurb on my book. Do you know Nora was the one that I was working with at the beginning? She loved this story, but unfortunately she passed on. It would have probably been done by now, and you know, yeah, I mean, what a woman. What a woman.
We've had some. There's been some bad luck with people passing and telling your story.
Yeah.
You know, the opening chapter of that book is the gangsters meet at the round table and they have an hour-long fight over who's going to sit where because they don't want the other guy to be at the head of the table. Just, you know, the whole back and forth. Write that and just keep going. Why don't you write it?
Yeah, we're working on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Frank, it's a brilliant idea. It's incredible. If y'all just recorded your calls, you'd have the material. My God.
You know,
What a great stage play that would make, John.
Yeah, that's one we were talking about too. Is, you know, just to be able to sit with the group and you know, and just, you know, just like they're part of the table. You know, like they're part of the conversation, sitting with a bunch of people and you're out to dinner or something, and we just.
You know what? That's a stage play because there's one scene.
Exactly.
I'd
It's
set it
like
up like
12 Angry Men.
yeah.
Just make it 12 Made Men.
12 made men. There you go.
You know, and what's cool about this group is that these are guys that changed their life. And there's some big name guys in there too, but they literally changed their life. And all of us have been out of prison 20 years or more because most guys go back. They just can't. They try for a little bit and they go back.
Hearing
Well,
your
with
story,
25 years
you have not gone back, and you've really completely changed everything coming from from where you came from, what you've been through, the lifestyle you lived, who your father was, and you've really you've completely changed everything about yourself. Like you said, that is always still in the back of your head, but you don't act on it, and it's just really quite a story that you've lived.
Yeah, I thank you. You know, a lot of people just don't understand how I can still function normally, but I found my way to do it, and that's what I do. You know,
It's a battle every day, I should think.
It's the little victories that mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
And my sons, my kids tell me how much they love me, how proud. A lot of my friends that have stood by my side that are proud. You know, when they tell me Frank works harder than anybody. I had kids telling me, I'm 60 years old now, right? I had some kids telling me after I worked a 16-hour shift, how do you do it? You know, I says, hey, you know, you do what you got to do. And they're like, no, it's old man stamina. That's what you got, old man stamina.
No. Yes, they call it work ethic.
Yes. Yes.
The kids are like that, though. You know, are we going to write all day? Yeah.
Hey, careful. Let's watch the record before we start talking about the generations. Let's watch what we're recording.
Well, generations are not, with almost 30 years in the criminal system, I can tell you that it's exceedingly rare. As a matter of fact, the most rare beast is the truly reformed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, as we say, find Jesus in jail, but most leave him there. And they might find him again, and they leave him again.
Point.
And you have a real, genuine story of somebody who has really changed. And it's not like you were. What's that?
I watched a lot of people that I didn't think would come back while I was in prison. I seen them come back, and it was one of the saddest things I ever seen, because it's just such a waste of life in prison. You know, especially federal prison. If you're a street guy and you go to prison, it's like being on the street. So you can get very comfortable very fast. But it's just such a waste of life. And you know who suffers? Not us. The people on the outside that love you, they're the ones that suffer.
Yeah.
You know, and to watch these people stand by these guys' side and watch some of these guys come back for some of the pettiest shit, it shocked me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Frank, where are you now? What in your life? What do you want to do? You're a relatively young guy. You still have a lot of what do you want to do? I mean, you're doing a lot. Obviously, you've got a movie going and a book, and any larger plans? Those are fairly large, though.
I want to be happy, and simple things make me happy. But what I've really enjoyed was when I started these tours, and then it branched out into public speaking, motivational speaking.
Yeah.
And I've learned that it's the family story that I'm promoting with the mob in the background. And it's been growing up till when this pandemic and everything started. I mean, I was going like crazy, and I really enjoy that.
Good.
I was doing some volunteer work for people that are getting out, you know, and it's very ironic because before I go, he's a rat. Then when I'm done, they're like, oh, you know, he's a pretty stand-up guy. Wow, that's a hell of a story. And I've changed some people's lives. And to me, there's nothing more fulfilling than that. I'm not going to sit and preach. I'm just going to tell you my story. You know, hopefully maybe you'll find something to change your life for the better. Yeah. So that's what I enjoy. I really enjoy that. When I'm not, I enjoy, I work at the hotel. I've been here for over 10 years off and on. It's like, you know, they love having me around because I do everything.
Frank, do you have handy your, how would one book you for a talk?
Just right now, it's just getting a hold of me through my familysecrettours.com.
Or could they write to the Facebook page as well, or no?
Yeah, you can write to the Facebook page. I prefer people getting a hold of me through my number through the Family Secrets Tours because I answer that. Facebook sometimes it goes crazy. Yeah. I think I didn't get back to you right away.
Yeah.
I'm really almost done with Facebook to some point sometimes because it's
yeah.
Yeah.
Phone number, by the way, do you happen to know it up top? I can look it up if you don't.
Yeah, I gotta look it up because I don't give my personal number, but it goes to my personal phone. So
yeah.
If you call the
tours.
Let me look up. I'll go to the website. Yeah, hold on a second.
Yeah, and let's give folks the opportunity. We'll give it a few times and make a not for the tours rather, but for the speaking engagements. Well,
yeah, I do a lot of senior groups, a lot of libraries, corporate events, you know, and I could take my story and I have 10 different presentations and I can actually put it more geared towards what the event is going on, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of women. Sometimes I have a lot of guys. And do you know the biggest readers of my book are women?
Yeah,
when I believe it. The cover of the book, you're like, well, you know, women be like, I'm not going to read this. Then they read it, like Nora. And they're like, oh my God, this is a family story. They can actually relate to it.
Yeah. That's what your story is. Your story isn't shoot them up. It's a story about other.
Exactly. And that's what affects people. You got it? You ready?
Yeah. If you're a mob My book is not the book that you're going to. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
No, you're right.
261443. I'm going to read it out loud. So if you,
Yeah, you read it out.
yeah,
But I just want it up on the screen. So it's 847-261-4435.
yeah. So at 847-261-4435, you can reach Frank. Frank, I'm sure, but you can get in touch with him and find out more about the.
We'll put it in the description below this video also.
It'll.
I answer the emails, and it's a one-man show, so you're going to get me.
That's all.
It's a hell. Like I said, I've taken the tour. I took it twice. I took two guests at different times. Really a great show. Frank really gives you it all. I mean, as we've seen today, he's really a great speaker, and you really really get what you see.
We missed a brother. You said there's three. I didn't know that. Who's the other?
Yeah, Nicky's 11 years younger than me. He's my youngest brother. He never got involved in anything.
Oh, okay. Where do you go on the tour, Frank?
On the tour?
Yeah, where do you go? I mean, we get in.
I'll take you through. I start out. We'll go over to Holy Name Cathedral. I talk about some of the history, Capone. I go over by St. Valentine's Massacre, but then I take you to the Grand and Ogden. I take you where my dad grew up. So I go through the Patch. Then I go down Taylor Street, show you some history on Taylor Street, Little Italy. Then I take you through Chinatown. I take you through. I'll show you different sites there. Take you by Sox Park, where one of the murders happened. Then I come back down through the Loop. I go through the Rush Street area, Old Town. So I give you a little history of Chicago too. So I hit a few buildings off the architectural tour. I'm working out something with Harry Carey's right now. All the history they have in their building. I actually do a lot of big private tours, so they'll do the luncheon after, and I'll go to the luncheon, and I'll sit around and talk with people, and then they open up the doors to show you the speakeasy in there. You go downstairs and see the history. There's just such a wealth, and I've just been growing with it more and more. When you come on a tour, it's not just about, hey, John Doe got shot over there and this guy shot. I'm talking about the different ethnic areas. I'm talking about food. I'll recommend restaurants, places to go, architectural buildings. A little bit about history.
As somebody not from Chicago, I've lived here for 12 years, but not from here, it really blew me away learning about and just watching somebody from Chicago drive who just knows everywhere with it, just like the back of their hand, and just weaving through the neighborhoods and all. I mean, it was really a great tour to learn about the city, and the mob stuff is secondary, but like Frank said, it's the history, it's the architecture, it's the good places to eat. It was really a great all-encompassing tour just to learn about the city itself. You
said Harry Carey's. Is that Harry Carey's Steakhouse or different?
The main one is on Dearborn and I'm sorry, was it oh man, it's right up by the river right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main building. There's a lot of history in that building. Paul Rico owned that building at one time with Frank Nitti.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he used to, part of it, the building next door, they had a warehouse there for the bootlegging and everything. They have a lot of memorabilia in there that they found.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I did a show on CNN International. It's a travel show. And I took them around and took them in there. And I took them to a lot of the historical stuff. And it was great. I mean, it was more about, so you see my part with it and all these other people with the city and these other tours and stuff. It was pretty cool. So
I stay in the hotel, or I did many times, kind of next to Harry, the baseball guy, right? Harry Carey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I stayed, I didn't know that you could go in. I didn't know that. I thought it was just.
Very close friends with my Uncle Ed Hanley.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, he was good. And,
Frank, the Holy Name Cathedral?
Yeah.
Well, across the street, most people don't realize that, guys, that was where O'Banion's flower shop was, just a little.
Right.
And that's where did you know he was killed?
Well, John, one of the things I do on the tours, because everything's changed, is I found pictures. So while I'm talking to you and we're in front of Holy Name, I pull up the picture showing O'Banion's flower shop. I show you different angles. I show you not only the bullet holes in the wall now that's mostly covered, but I show you a picture the day after it happens. So yeah, so I take you in areas and I have the pictures. In the meantime, I'm showing you pictures of stuff from mine, because people like to visualize too.
Yeah, he's got the media right there. It's not just it's not just driving around and pointing. He's got there's the media right there, and with the period pictures.
Chicken
And I
McFadden.
learned all that myself with PowerPoint and keynotes, and I've been learning. I wanted to know how to do it. So I would go take the free classes at Apple, and that's how I learned to do all this stuff. So I put my home PowerPoint. I made my website. You know, so I'm learning. Yeah, I'm learning. I'm learning.
Trying to learn
You wanna
social media
stand-
right now, Frank. You're giving me hope.
Doing okay though, Cam. You're doing good. Yeah. You know, Chicken McFadden was a bad guy who worked for Ratatouille, and his son was a detective. And many years ago, I drove around, and he said, "There's a cathedral," and he said, "There were more bullet holes till goddamn vandals patched them up." Only in Chicago would they see.
Vandals patching up bullet holes.
And my one restaurant that I used to own is right around the corner over there, Bella Luna.
That's right, Bella Luna.
I take you past La Luce that I used to own too, and part of the story. So yeah, it's but
Are you a cook? Right.
yeah, I like to cook.
Yeah.
But I grew up making pizza. I love pizza. So I grew up at a place in Elmwood Park called Armand's. You see it a lot where they talk where DeFranco and Cerrone and all those guys. It was a block away from my house. I started working there when I was 14.
Is that Jane Armand's?
Right, they said that was the last thing Jackie Cerrone wanted. As soon as he got out of prison, right before he died, he wanted to eat Armand's.
Yeah, and I can tell you tons of stories of stuff there, you know, and guys and things. And it's you know.
Is that the chain? Because we have an Armand's in Churchtown.
It's a small chain now in the Chicagoland area, but it's not out of Chicago.
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, what they did was they were franchising, but they bought a lot of them back because, you know, I can give you all the ingredients, but if somebody's not going to show you how to make it and every little thing, you know, there's a lot more to it than, you know.
Here made Armand's Chicago style pizza, which is this thick, well, you know it then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in all the Italian neighborhoods, we eat the thin crust. Okay.
Yeah.
But Armand's is the deep dish, which is big downtown, but we used to have the raised Sicilian is what it is with the toppings. You got to have a good dough to have that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I have made 25 pizzas throughout. It's just, and all the money I bought the brown thing you're supposed to, you know what it is, you got to have an oven first that can cook at a high temperature.
yeah and no, John. If you get the pizza stone, you put it all the way on the bottom, you preheat that oven for 30 minutes at 500 degrees, that pizza stone will be good. Put a little cornmeal on the bottom so the pizza slides on and off,
Yeah.
and it cooks close. It's the closest thing without buying a pizza oven.
You know, Pepe's Pizza, I don't know if you've ever heard of it in New Haven.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I haven't had it though.
He says they brought the pizza from there. That's their trademark, is the corn on the bottom. And it does make a difference. It's really delicious, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a pizzaholic, so.
Yeah. That was,
For $12, I just buy it and sit around and curse myself out for burning another one's. $12-15, you know. Bear in mind, I'm in West Virginia.
the first time we had ever had Lou Malnati's was when we went to your tour, Frank, and we left, and you had people right after. I was like, damn, if you didn't have people, we would have had you come over to Lou Malnati's with us.
Yeah, I would have loved to. Yeah, that's the only downfall from the tour. I meet a lot of great people. They invite me out, and if they don't do it prior, I'll put them on the last tour. But if they don't do it prior, I'm a workaholic. I take an hour and a half between each tour. My tours run over half the time, and I just get in this role.
Yeah, we didn't even think of it. We thought, oh yeah, let's go get pizza. We're downtown,
Next time you guys are in Chicago, there's a place called Armand's Victory Tap. It's on South Michigan Avenue. It's the original Armand's recipe with the pizza. It's really good. And then Victory Italia is right down the street on Ontario, just past Orleans, and that's the original Armand's too. So pizza, the thin crust pizza, and the stuffed artichoke and the baked clams is what I highly recommend.
Yeah, we already plotted this out. We got a crew. We were going to talk to you about renting a bus. We got enough people. That would be a great.
Once I'm back, that's what I do. If you guys want to rent the bus, you want me to rent the bus, I work all that out. But I'm doing more and more private tours because I enjoy that, and people seem to enjoy it too. And a lot of.
What do you do in Chinatown? You give a tour there too? What, I mean, or you just go through Chinatown?
Well, I'm taking you. No, we're going through Chinatown. I'll take you past a few clubs. You know, I show you stuff. Sometimes I get lucky. All the guys are sitting outside. It looks like a scene on The Sopranos or something. Yeah, I take you through. I just give you a little idea of the area. I take you past Angelo's house, and that's the only house I go through. But I don't take to anybody else's house. And I take you where my dad grew up on Grand Avenue.
What's left of the patch?
Not much. It's a lot of areas are gentrified. You know? Yeah. Chinatown is probably Bridgeport. Chinatown is probably the last ethnic area where there's still a lot of people in there, and you'll get that feel when we go in there. You know, but most of the other areas, it's just prime real estate. People have moved out. You know, me growing up on Harlem Avenue in the 80s and 90s, that was the new Little Italy. That's where everybody, when they got off the boat, were going.
There's a couple bakeries on Taylor Street still, but in like new Italian restaurants, but there's not the old places anymore. People have built new places on Taylor Street.
I think Sopranos is one of the last ones now because they're all moving out. And
can't afford it anymore down there.
I say the Levy, you say the Levy. 22nd Street, right? Cam? The Levy, what had been the Levy.
22nd Street, that's Cermak.
Cermak is 22nd. 26th is
26th Street, 33rd Street is Chinatown.
Yeah.
So, Sox Park is on 35th.
Yeah.
But running down with that was what is that? Is that 26 where the levee is? The wall is. I think that's 26. I can't remember.
22nd Street, which is now Cermak.
Yeah,
22nd Cermak.
It's always been Cermak, 22nd Street.
Oh.
They don't. This is Chicago's not like New York. You don't call street. You know, it's not street numbers. It's you know, and you don't call the interstate numbers either. It's the Dan Ryan. It's the Eads.
Edens, yeah, and Ryan.
Yeah, Edens and sorry, Eads is the elementary school down the street.
Eisenhower.
Yeah.
To the what town was that, Paul? That I told you, Sam Giancana lived there, and Arcota.
Oak Park.
Yeah, that's,
River Forest.
Yeah, that's like a who's who of.
Yeah, so they all border. You got Galewood, Oak Park, River Forest, and Elmwood Park. That's yeah. And then you got Paul Rica's old house with the elevator in there. Yeah, you got a lot of guys there. Ricardo's houses. Yeah, a lot of them moved out there. In fact, you know, for many years there was a law that you couldn't rob in Elmwood Park or in those areas. You know, if you did, you get hurt. You know.
Yeah.
So it's because they're concerned about the neighborhood. Not always. They was concerned about the heat that would bring to them.
Yeah. As a kid, did you know any of these guys? Arcota, Rica? Rica, I think, was dead before your.
Rica, yeah. All I knew was about Rica. We walked past his house one day when me and my dad were walking, and you know, he had just said that guy right there was the guy. He was the guy. You hear about Capone all the time, but this guy right here, Ricardo, I would be at weddings or something like that, you know. But if you're not introduced to somebody, you don't just walk up and say hi, you know. And so yeah, I was around them all. Sam Giancana, I grew up with his grandkids, so you know, so I knew his daughter Antoinette, but I grew up with the grandkids. But I never met him. You know,
Ned's still around someplace in Chicago.
Yeah. In fact, when we were, I think it was when we were in prison, the nephew, Sam Giancana, the nephew, wrote a book about his uncle. And my dad said that book, whoever fed him that information, it was spot on. And I don't remember the name of the book, but it's
Double Cross. Is that it? Is that no Double Cross? Double Cross. That's
but it's written by the nephew, and it's you know, guys in the life were talking about it, that there was stuff in there that was, you know, spot on.
Is it Double Cross, Kim?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's yeah, right, Paul? That's it, Double Cross.
Yep, Double Cross. Sam and Chuck Giancana wrote that.
I completely blew that off, Paul. I read a page or two. Really, I just thought it was this guy making stuff up.
No, you know, guys in the life were talking about that book. They were talking about that book, and years prior, they were talking about a book that's hard to find. And oh my God,
The Don by William Brashler.
Yes, the Dawn.
Yeah.
All those books by
I'm
Brashler
sorry.
are pretty.
The
Brashler and
Don.
Don Henry on.
I think this
Brashler and
book
Don
was
Henry
in the
on.
70s when everything was changing. Oh God, if I say it, it's hard to find, but my dad loved that book. He thought that, oh God.
Yeah, you got to think of the name of that now. That's it. I mean, you can't leave us here.
Yeah, it's a real weird name. It doesn't sound like a mob book.
Is it the Chicago Way?
No. Oh man, I have to.
Captive City?
Yes.
Yeah, Captive City's the book, isn't it?
Good.
Ovid Damaris.
Yeah.
Ovid Damaris.
Yeah. Yeah. Damaris put out some good stuff.
Yes.
Captive City, there you go.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Romer books, was always hit and miss with that stuff. You'd read it and you'd just be like, oh boy, this guy's really full of himself, And
Yeah. That's what I heard. Also, I'm close to, I lived in D.C. for many years, and other agents didn't like him. He had a bad reputation. He was a bully this is what they tell me. Yeah, he was a physical, I guess he was a big guy, but he tended to be a bully and challenging people to fights. He had been a heavyweight boxer or something. And
He was always very kind to me. I always liked him, and he always took the time to talk to me.
And they were very interesting. There was a lot of parts that were way off, And it's what
Maybe you intimidated him, Paul.
what he knew at the time is what I'm guessing, because
Right.
you're going to write about what you knew.
yeah, yeah.
The one part that really I knew when he was off, and I think a lot of people did, is when he kept saying that Tony's name, Tony the Ant.
The Ant. Yeah.
So in the neighborhood with the slang, hey, Ant, what's going on? It's a short for Anthony. Okay, and so I don't know where he came up with that, but that's what turned a lot of people off. And then when I read The War of the Godfathers, now people say that it was written as a fiction book. I didn't know that, but I read that and it was just so far-fetched and off that that's what kind of turned me off on some stuff.
Not his best work.
No. So
No.
okay, so you agree with me there, Paul. Yeah, that was a rough one. But I mean, there was a lot of interesting reading that I read from him, and it was to me. I'm looking at somebody that lived at a certain time that was law enforcement's view of it.
Yeah.
But what really intrigued me was the game that him and Accardo were playing back and forth.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Ant. It never, and it's so simple. It never occurred to me. The Ant, of course, Anthony.
Yeah. Anthony.
So yeah, Anthony. There you go. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
and
Anthony. That's what they.
everybody says short names, so you don't say Anthony, you say, hey, Ant, what's up?
You
Yeah.
know Spilotro personally, or no?
I met him a handful of times, and like I said, our families were very close.
Yeah.
We were in hoagies all the time. Michael and my dad were close. My dad and Tony, like I says, they had their differences at times, but they had a mutual respect for one another for many years. And that was the hardest part about when they were getting killed was, going back to the family part. I mean, these guys are our friends, and they're getting killed. It's just, it's like you can be 1 minute you're fine, and the next minute, and then the criminal justification, kill Michael so you can get Anthony.
I had many, many long, wonderful conversations. I don't know if you know the guy. His name was Joe Pignatella, Joe Pigs, but he was in Las Vegas and he ran the Suvios, and he was in a partnership with Spilotro. And
I don't know who that is. I heard the name before, but I don't know who he is.
he was a great guy. And he gave you a whole different perspective of Spilotro you saw in the movies. He loved the guy, and a whole
very, exactly. The movie makes him look out to be like this loose cannon. There's a lot more to it. And the funny part about it is, out of all the Spilotro brothers, Dr. Pat Spilotro was the toughest one.
he's a dentist. Yeah, incredible.
Heard the same thing. Yeah. Frank, talking about the Ant. There's a story and I don't know if you've heard this, but the story was that one of the reasons he got knocked down was he had aspirations to take over the mob.
Mm.
And there's a story that he actually went to see Accardo in Palm Springs to make his case. Did you ever hear that?
No, I didn't. I mean, it could have happened, but I didn't. I just know that he was moving up fast. He was moving up very fast, and there's a reason why he's moving up very fast. Okay, because of he proved that. You don't move up fast in the Chicago mob.
Yeah.
He was moving up fast.
I read some stuff from the time, some news articles and some reports from the time, and he had just had several serious heart attacks, and he had put on a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And I think he had just written a new will because he just had a quadruple bypass shortly before not long before he was killed. I mean, I think he wasn't expecting to live long on his own. You see how much weight he's put on from when he was young to when they got him, when he had his mustache. And I mean, he had chunked up a bit, but he had just had quadruple bypass, I think, shortly before.
Problems and everything he was looking at, he knew he fell out of favor.
Yeah. And all that stress too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And it gets you. Then you got the government all over you all day long.
Yeah.
But again, the Spilotro family, they're torn apart right now too. Okay?
Terrible.
So
Talking about Romer and Spilotro, Romer's book, which mine happens to be autographed.
Yeah.
It's not a bad book.
No, I read that. I enjoyed that book. The War of the Godfathers was one that threw me off.
I agree with you, Frank. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And here's Double Cross, the one that you mentioned that your father was so impressed with.
Did you read it?
You bet.
How was it? Did you enjoy it, or did you?
I thought it was great reading. I just didn't know that I believed a lot of it. But saying that your father said it was really on, I'm going to read it again.
Yeah, I got to read it again too. But I remember my dad telling me, and I did read it. I just don't remember, because one of the things I did in prison was I read as many books as I could. And a guy told me that was down for 10 years. He goes, write down what you read. He goes, because you're going to wind up reading books twice. I'd pick up a book a year later. I get a chapter in and say, oh, shit, I read this one already. So then I started writing them down.
Yeah, that's happened to me as well. Same thing.
Yeah.
But I thought Romer's Enforcer book was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I like that one the best, to tell you the truth.
And you talked about his interplay with Accardo in that game. And one of the stories he tells in Man Against the Mob is when he went to Accardo for Bernie Glickman. And it interfered to try and save Glickman's life.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a true story or not, but what a great story of him and Accardo walking down the street in the middle of the night in River Forest.
Yeah. Well, that's what we did, is walk. Now, and you're walking with two guys that don't trust one another, right? Okay. But I know the mentality. I don't know the mentality of the law enforcement because I haven't been there, but I know the mentality of these guys, okay? And if we could do something for you, just like Giancana tried to do, just like Lucky Luciano and Lansky tried to do in World War II. If we can give you something, then you're going to give us something back. We're not doing it out of the kindness of our heart.
Yeah.
So he's trying to show Romer, hey, look, I'm human too. I'm not going to admit that I'm not going to incriminate myself, but all of a sudden. So yeah, and that's the stuff that intrigues me because it's mind games. I would love to know what they were really trying to get out of it, both of them. I'm sure that'd be a story in itself.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it was Romer's hope to get some information out of Accardo and maybe even turn him in some way so he could use that information. But they had a mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
Even though they were enemies.
Which I go back to tell you what my dad taught me. Don't disrespect. Don't let them make it personal. See, Romer talks about how he kind of liked Accardo, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's what the philosophy was. Accardo didn't get his kids involved.
I remember when you first explained that about don't make it personal. That really made so much sense to me, Frank. I remember when it really is. Why would you be antagonistic? I mean, if you do that, then they're just going to be like, I'm going to nail this guy. I'm going to get this guy. So even when I approach any situation, I try not to make it personal. It just makes so much sense. If you're going to approach an opponent, anybody that you're against, I mean, don't tick them off. It's just not going to help. They're not going to help you.
Exactly. It's like a mind chess game. I mean,
yeah.
Once you make it personal, what I'm talking about is making personal is you sitting at the dinner table
exactly.
with your wife and kids, and you're so mad, all you're thinking about is getting me. That's personal.
Right.
You know, at some point, you can make all the mistakes you want. You're law enforcement. I can't make one. So you don't want to get to that.
Yeah.
The problem with a lot of families, as you know, the Seiferts, there are a lot of other examples. They take it personally because they don't know how else to take it. I mean, you've been in the field, you've been, you understand that, don't take it personally. But, you know, some guy's son is ex-wife, I don't think it's the same thing, is it?
Well, it's also a thing where it's well, I'm talking about two guys in a conversation where that's somebody's father getting killed. So it's easier to tell somebody don't take it personal or it's business, but you know when it happens to you, it's different. So conversations are different, but you know, it's hard for those kids to let go, and they're not kids no more; they're men now. But you know, they're mad at the mob. They're mad at their dad for, you know, even, you know, thinking about himself first. So, you know, it's a great story because this man tried to give everything to Lombardo and move on and open up another place. They don't let you go. They see the money. They're not going to let you go.
Yeah. You know, we did the three of us did an interview with Frank Maritati, right?
Maritoti.
His father, well, is way before. His father was Frankie Diamond, who was a really bad guy.
Yeah, I've read a lot about that.
They killed him in front of Frank, who's, isn't he the gentlest, nicest man you could? Yeah. What happened? Well, he was sitting in the car, and one guy killed his father on the other side, and one guy reached in the car and shoved Frank's head down so he wouldn't get hit. For years, he couldn't grow hair. He's got a huge head of hair. He couldn't grow hair on the back of his head. And he saw a psychiatrist and he worked it through. But, you know, you talk about carrying it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's just, what he probably went through, you know?
Yeah, to have dredged up, you know? How long is your tour?
I try to keep it under 2 hours.
Wow, that's a time.
I've never had any complaints about the time of the tour. Usually, sometimes with some people, we'll be sitting in the car after for another half hour because they have a lot of questions. So it's. I want you to, just like when you guys got a hold of me, Camillus, you took the tour twice. Can we do the interview? Yes. I support the people that support me. Okay, I get these calls every day, but I'm going to support the people that support me. So when you come on my tour, I want to make sure that you're really enjoying it. That's an experience.
Yeah.
I value the customer. It's kind of old time. I'm not here to screw you. I want you to go out and tell everybody that you loved it. And if you didn't, tell me. If you hated it, I want to know.
Yeah.
What can I do? I don't want you upset. I want you to walk away from there and say, wow, that was great.
Yeah.
Put everything into it.
Yeah. You must be constantly busy though, right? With the tour?
It was up to, so I took a break in January and came out here for a couple of months and kind of vegged out by working at the hotel. I just needed a little break. I was doing 3 tours a day, almost 7 days a week.
Wow.
I mean, it was all private. Private took off. Anywhere from 1 person to 40 people.
Yeah.
Private. So my thing is based on private now because it's great. It's more financially better for me.
Yeah.
And because I'm just a single guy, I can't order all these trucks and buses and hope they get full.
Yeah.
I can customize it more to the people, and
So,
I'm enjoying it. They're enjoying it.
let me ask you, what's the payment? Cash, credit card?
Oh, you can do credit. You can go right online. I set it up. You go right online and you could use your credit card. I have all the secure stuff. I use Square and everything, and you make the appointment. And I don't really deal in cash. It's just credit cards.
You would go to Family Secret Tours.
It's Family Secrets Tours.com. So I charge I knew Frank Collada was charging like 100, 150 per person for private tours. He was the one that gave me the idea. He was recommending people were calling. So I took a few people, but it was few and far between. But I really enjoyed the private tour. I mean, you know, at first I was charging 100, 150 a person, and I was getting it.
Yeah, I'm sure you were.
Yeah. And then
I'm sure you were.
So I brought it down to $59, a minimum of 2 people. And that has been going great. And everybody's like, oh, you got to raise the money. You got to raise the money. I said, look, I'm not here to gouge anybody. I says, when my time spots, when I'm full, that's when I might raise it a little bit. But in bus, it's $39 a person if I did the public bus tours. That was hard because people come late. I tell you to come 10 minutes before. And it was hard. It's hard. It's hard filling up those buses, a lot of advertisement. Do you know, I built my company off of TripAdvisor, Yelp, and Google.
Yeah.
And I do very little advertising, and God, it took off. And
I put you on the news a couple times, and that was you know, that was where I think I saw you on a news clip on YouTube, and that was that.
Yeah.
Same here. As soon as you're back online, I want to bring the wife in and do the private tour. I have a feeling that all this COVID's going to go away early in November, but maybe I'm just suspicious.
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I really hope you're right, because I really want to get back to it. Right now, what I'm looking at is I'm thinking March. That's what I'm thinking, you know, and just waiting. You know, I started getting a lot of calls 2 weeks ago, a lot of calls about private tours. And then after Sunday, and then this following Saturday, it's been nothing. And I can't go back to Chicago and base on opening up a business and not knowing what's going to happen that weekend downtown in the whole area that I go through. So
Right.
I have to sit back and wait because I'm antsy. I want to get back to it. I enjoy it.
Right. Well, when I was downtown with my wife the other day, it was practically deserted compared to what you usually see, guys, and there's broken glass everywhere. Even the Ronald McDonald House was torn up.
Yeah.
And you remember Central Camera that's down there right in the loop, that old camera store that's been there for 100 years?
Yeah.
Gone. A hole in the wall. Just totally destroyed.
Yeah, a lot of businesses aren't going to reopen either, and it's a shame because there's just so much history and so much beauty in the city, and I hate to see them. You know, hopefully, we can get back. You know, I just want to get back to work. I want to get back to work. I want to enjoy what I do, and
You know, Frank, I have guys I know out there with a fraction of your knowledge and background, policemen, historians who are guessing their way through. The city of Chicago, no, Cook County library system has a speakers. Do you know about that? You just go from one library.
I just started looking into all this stuff. Even out here too, there's a huge network that I'm working on. So I'm putting some stuff together right now so that I can start sending it out, emailing it to all these companies. I've been lucky because a lot of my work is through word of mouth. So I do a presentation and then I get 5 calls after that before the communities. I do almost every different community.
You know who that John Alight's got a podcast. He's got a decent following. John just started talking to him.
I talked to John on the phone the other day.
I just realized he had a big podcast. He has a really good following, you know.
He also, he's written, I think, 3 books. He also was in on Netflix that series, that limited.
Yeah, John just talked to him on the phone recently. Got talking to him.
He's very social media savvy. He really is.
Did you interview him already?
Huh?
Did you guys interview him already?
No, we were going to. I liked him a great deal. I thought he was a good guy.
Because I can contact him once you guys are ready, and I can make a connection.
We're nice guys that we don't ask dirty questions and take cheap shots. And he's an Albanian guy. Did I tell you that?
He's Albanian.
Yeah.
I also know some people that are very close to him too, and he has a very interesting story. Very interesting story.
We think what we're going to do, Frank, is specialize in Chicago.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great plan. I'm trying to think. Do you guys know Kenji Gello?
No.
I don't know him. I know him from, he was on Gary's show and Gangland Wire. So I was gonna see about getting his information because he tells a hell of a story.
Yeah, yeah, and how he's changed his life around. So Kenji's a real close friend of mine. He lives out in the suburbs. He opened up a martial arts school for training. He volunteers a lot of times with Alzheimer, older people getting in shape. It's an MMA school. Kenny is half Italian, half Japanese. He's got
He's here in Chicago?
Yeah.
I thought he might be out in Los Angeles.
No, he was in Los Angeles. He moved to Chicago. His wife is from Chicago, but they're out in the suburbs. Kenji's very close with me. So if you want, just let me know when you're ready, and I'll have him contact you.
Thank you, Frank.
He's got a hell of a story like mine. Okay.
Thank you, Frank. We would like that. We would really like that.
Thank you very much.
I'll try to think anybody Chicago that's interested in talking. I just have to think, who else. Then also it's always because me and Kenji, along with a guy named Andrew DiDonato from the Gambino family.
Donato's got a hell of a good story too.
Yeah, so the three of us were doing some speaking engagements, and we did one in Vegas. We did a couple in Vegas. So we did it with the Clark County Library. They have a huge auditorium. It was like 300 people. So they wanted me to talk. I said, well, I'm going to bring Andrew and Kenji. They said, well, they already talked. I said, okay. I said, but what I want to do here is I wanted to try something different. So on the screen behind us, I just put a continuous, because it was a huge screen, continuous slides of, New York, Chicago, Vegas, and all that. And we had 3 stools, and we sat out there. And we talked about the East Coast, Chicago, West Coast. We talked about how we operated, how, and
that's great.
Everybody away. They would just love it. Brought them on Mancow, because I was on Mancow a couple of times. I brought them on Mancow, and we were just starting to get into it. And Tom Dreesen was coming on. Well, I know Tom. My uncle made his career, my uncle Ed. Anyways, Tom, like a little bitch, okay, and I hope it's still being recorded because I was so it says I'm not going in there with rats.
Whoa.
Oh.
And he hid in the other room till we left. And I wanted to go confront him and said, it's all right when you see me in Gibson's that you come over and kiss my ass, but now you're going to make a statement.
Yeah.
And then you get mad because everybody asks you about Frank Sinatra. It just upset me that he had to do that because he could have came on. I'm not going to out you. I'm not going to disrespect you in any way, but we could have had a nice conversation. And if you don't like rats, you could have said that. Nobody's going to hold it against you. Okay. So that really upset me, but and I was loving it with the 3 of us on the show.
I would like to, I think even focusing on Chicago, when we could get decent guys, it certainly wouldn't hurt to have a guy like DiDonato on who tells a great story.
He lives in Chicago too.
He lives in Chicago too?
Yeah.
No shit.
Wow.
Kenji and DiDonato, I've heard both of them. I've seen both of them speak. They both tell incredible stories about things that they've done. So yeah, I think that we could really benefit from having both of them.
They're both part of that support group that I tell you about. That we talk, each other off the ledge. We've done speaking events together. We almost had a contract with a show like My Blue Heaven in Arizona. We filmed it. The networks were going to take it, and the people that spliced it were from England.
Yeah.
All up.
Yeah, right over their heads. I know.
It's about us coming together in Scottsdale, and we're going to open up a restaurant, and we're going to work it.
Yeah.
How we changed our lives. I forgot what the title was, and they changed it to Knife by something or something. But we had all these networks that were ready to take it. The Food Network wanted it too. They didn't want to give it to the Food Network because the studio we were working for doesn't make money off the Food Network. We make all the money.
Oh.
It was hilarious.
Did you stop it?
Pardon me?
Why don't you pursue it?
We did for a bit. We had some other people try to pursue it. There's always a window that opens and closes in Hollywood. It's very hard to get something done. So you just got to keep pushing and pushing.
I know.
Right. These kids nowadays, like my niece that you might not remember, but I brought her on the tour with us, and she's young. She's just Gen Z. Like I've been telling, they're all about this this stuff that to them is not this mob stuff and all, like the idea of it. And I don't mean that's all, but just anything that they can do, it's going to be big. It's like, it's, you see this new thing on Netflix and all. I think that anything to do with that is going to be, the next thing. And I think the kids are going to really be into it. So I think that something like that's got a huge potential.
Yeah. Point, Cam, that it's all new to them.
Exactly. It's all new to this new generation, Frank.
The more this is over, the more people are intrigued with it.
And these kids don't know about it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
John Light has had an idea, and he's getting it done, and that's why he called me, and I says, yeah, I'm on board. I don't want to talk about his idea because it's his idea to talk about, but
Yeah.
he's got some good people behind him, and it's something like I was talking about, this roundtable stuff like that, and he's just brought it to another level. So I'm waiting to hear back from him because I'm very interested in it, and
Yeah.
I think his idea is.
I hope it works out, Frank. You really, really deserve something good like that. I mean, since I've lived out here, one thing I've really come to respect and really like about Chicago is just y'all know how to hustle. And I mean, it's just something I really, something about people of Chicago. Y'all know how to hustle. Y'all know how to make it happen, and y'all always do. So,
Frank, I have books that I wrote 25 years ago every month, and I still make a little bit of money, not a fortune, but they were written years ago. And now I can tell there are people, Capone is popular in Japan. It's amazing. This is a worldwide thing,
I get a lot of people from all over the world, and it's been great. I've met a lot. I built a lot of friendships. I've been offered jobs. I've been offered to come and visit and stay. It's pretty.
Spoken at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas.
I spoke there. They just put up on their site my interview. My interview. They just put it up. I think
The Mob Museum in Chicago.
there was a guy that was talking about it's hard to raise them. So you have to have now the Mob Museum. I did with Mike Mesa, the FBI agent on the case. I've spoke with Mike before, and people love it because it's a dynamic of when we're both speaking. So Mike will tell the FBI side, I'll tell my side, then me and Mike start talking about our relationship and everything we went through together, serious stuff, funny stuff, and it's well received.
I bet y'all have a good dynamic between the two. You coming at it from those two different angles.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. And Mike was another guy in the case. It's funny because in the book I talk about it. Mike is very young looking, and when Mike came on, he came right out of the academy, and they sent him out to the prison. And I looked at him when he sat down, and I talked about this. I go, they're sending kids out here now? They're not taking me serious. Mike was unbelievable. Smart. And between him and Mitch Marge, it was like having an all-star team. It was really cool. And, we developed a great business relationship, me and Mike. We butted heads at times. It was all for the good of everything. So he was the one that really got me started. He says, do you want to get up and speak in front of people? I go, what are you, nuts? He goes, well, we got the Department of Justice for the state of California, their big conference. They want us to come out. I go, I never spoke in front of anybody. I go, who wants to hear about a rat that told his father, told on his father? I go, Frank, that's not your story. So I sat down, and me and Mike, and that's how this all got started.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
You don't have a podcast.
Yeah, I YouTube, I refuse. I passed on that one guy on YouTube that was interviewing Sammy Bull and everybody. They called me. They were going to fly me out. I forgot.
Valuetainment. David Ben. I can't remember.
Yeah, so
I'll tell you what, because I like you a lot, and you're a good guy. Hell, me and Ken, we'll build your damn podcast for you. We'll show you how to do it.
I appreciate that offer. I just right now so what I'm trying to do is just focus on a couple of things and grow slow. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm getting hit with so much stuff that I'm trying to I guess I'm trying to grow slow. I want to get it right. I want it, and so I've had people, friends of mine, that I started a YouTube page and I'm not keeping up on it. It's just I just don't have enough time sometime with everything.
Yeah.
So I'm concentrating right now on getting this movie project done.
Yeah.
That's the door for me. and then taking one step at a time. I love the motivational speaking, the public speaking, and I want to get this movie project done. And then I want to slowly move to a YouTube channel or a podcast. And once I can do that, but right now, in order for me to survive, I also have to work. So it's 60 with MS. So sometimes it's just, but I appreciate it. I appreciate that offer, and I may take you up on it at some point.
Well, I speak for Cam and Paul. You need it, man.
Yeah, well, what I usually try and do is I let my sort of partial mania take over, and I try and do everything at once, and then I do it all sort of sloppily. But I think that your approach is probably the best.
Well, it works different for everybody. I'm just trying to do what I'm comfortable with.
I think you're exactly right.
You know, when I first
one thing that Frank, that there's no way to ask you all the questions we have, even in 2 or 3 hours. And I would really, really be excited if you would come back again sometime, because I've got a list of things. You know, we went down a couple of alleys that are fascinating, and there's another dozen of them.
Yeah,
we can go down.
We need to wrap. I didn't realize the time. We need to wrap it up. Not only that, he should come back, because I have a better suit coat than this that I want to show you guys.
No sweatsuit yet?
Huh?
No pants either.
The hubcap on a chain, you know.
That's right.
I have beautiful suit coats, so you know that's really. I mean, you're important too.
I'm gonna wear my. I got my Puma leisure suit. That's what I'm gonna wear next time.
There you go.
Nice.
Oh, maybe your wife will come on with it. You know, Cam.
I'm telling you, she's real. She's out at the store right now. I'm telling you, she's real.
You guys just told me something. Do you know who you want to talk to?
No.
Not
Who's
my
that?
ex-wife.
Who?
My ex-wife.
Yeah.
You guys want to talk to her? I'll set it up. She'll do it. Okay.
I'd love to. I think
Absolutely.
that'd be great.
She's helping me in the new book. Okay. Because her story is the one that everybody's. I brought her to a speaking engagement. I said, I want you to get up and speak and just tell your story.
Yeah.
I spoke in front of anybody. I go, Lisa, people want to hear your story.
Yes.
I spoke for a little bit. I had her get up there and speak from the heart. At the end, everybody was in line to talk to her. She goes, you were right. I don't know why I listened to it. I go, you have an unbelievable story. She's good at telling it too. If you watch my Nightline, you'll see her speak for a couple of minutes. But if you guys want something different,
Yes.
it's a woman's point of view that was in this.
When can you talk to her?
When you want to do it. She's the evenings are the best for her, like 4 or 5 o'clock. Okay, you want to give me, some dates, and or if you want me, let me get a hold of her, and she could give you some dates.
Yeah. You got my email, right, Frank?
I'll get a hold of her when I get off the phone, and I'll set something up in the next week or so.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to go for on this. Is not the usual. Then I shot him, and then I want to. What happened to the wife? What happened to the child? And we're respectful. I think I would never blind.
You guys will like her. She's educated. She doesn't. She's not like you. So I told my dad, he should kill that motherfucker. No. Victoria Gotti had a real good story, but she was acting too much like a gangster, and she lost all the female.
Right.
But she did have a good story. If you listen to her sister.
By the way, the genre is Bonanno's wife, Rosalie. Do you remember?
Yes, she just came out with a book, Rosalie Bonanno.
Very good too. And she's, she's a class act.
Bill Bonanno's wife.
My wife actually helped write a whole chapter in the book describing my father and describing the whole family structure. And these guys wrote the book with me that wrote 18 other books. The Zimmerman brothers, they just loved Lisa. And in this new book, a lot of it is going to be with her telling the story.
I think that's absolutely.
I'd love to have her on.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll set that up. She's going to come on. Okay, I will get that done.
And then you over here, and I'll feed you meatballs and spaghetti and sausage.
I can vouch for those. They're excellent.
Oh,
he's a great cook.
There you go. And my breakfasts are to die for. No?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Good though. Yeah.
Frank, I think we'd definitely like to have you on, and I'll reach out to you through the email now, and maybe we can. I would like to see about having Andrew and Kenji on. I'll talk to John and Paul, give them the heads up on the two of them, because like I said, I think they both got great stories.
Yeah, Kenji for sure. I'll get on. Andrew, I haven't talked to recently, so I gotta hunt him down. But I know how to get a hold of him. So, you know.
Let me give people.
I don't mean to put you in a spot if it's a weird spot reaching out to someone. I mean, I can.
No, it's not. I just haven't talked to him in a while.
Okay.
I'll reach out to him because we reach out to each other once in a while.
Before we leave, I want to tell people one more time, what is the correct email or correct address online for your tours? I misspoke it. So it's Frank. It's FamilySecretsTours.com, right?
Hold on. Let me.
I want to pull it up. It's Family Secrets with an S, Tours with an S.com.
Yeah, and we'll put it in the description at the bottom of the YouTube video.
You know what? That's true. So at the end of this, both programs, you can have a link directly to Amazon, and we'll put it on our blog, and we'll put it on it's going to be in a lot of places. It'll take you directly to Amazon to buy Frank's book, Frank Calabrese, to buy his book. I'll put the phone number up there as well, so you can call and book yourself, and a brief bio of Frank and a photo and so forth.
The book is here, Operation Family Secrets. It's a mob book, but it's a family story. It's a really great all around.
Corner?
Huh?
Frank, is that you in the corner?
There's the father, and there's
Dad, that's a prison photo. Me and my dad. There were other people in the photo. They just split it and they put
Wow, you were a kid. You were a baby. Look.
I was 37 in that picture.
Yeah.
You guys want to laugh? The New York Times bestseller, number 14. You know how that happened? NPR calls me, or the Random House calls me, and they're like, "Hey, we got an interview with you on NPR, the Terry Gross Show." I'm like, "Who the hell's Terry Gross, and what's an NPR?" On it twice, I shoot up. I passed Sammy Hagar by one spot, and that was it.
Those are the New York Times readers. NPR are the New York Times readers. You know.
And Terry Gross, she'll sell you some books.
I learned.
Oh yeah.
I learned that. Yes, and that's how I hustle too. I sell my books. Off after the tours, speaking engagements. My girl comes with me, and it's just a hustle. That's
if
it.
you could put us in touch with Terry Gross, we could use some new listeners.
Yeah, I know. I want to try to keep in touch too. Hopefully, I get them again when.
Absolutely. Here's to you.
When I get the second book out. But I'm
Here's
excited.
to you, brother.
I'm excited for you guys talking to Lisa. You're going to really enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I'm looking forward to it.
If she's not going to answer some, she'll tell you, but she's going to really open up, and it's very interesting, very interesting. And I'm going by what other people have told me.
Well, Frank, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fantastic. You're going to come back, I hope?
Sure.
All right, good. That was really, did you hear that? Yeah, sure. That was really reluctant. She was like, yeah, come on. And again, Paul, you're a good man. Thank you. I know you must be exhausted. 10-hour drive last night from D.C. to back, right?
Oh, wow.
But we had those delicious grinders to keep us fueled and awake.
And you call them grinders. Good man. Good man.
Well, that came from the East Coast.
That's right. What do they call them in Chicago?
Sub sandwiches.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah. All right. Gentlemen, good night to you.
Thanks. It was a pleasure meeting you guys too. And yes, I definitely will be back on. So,
Frank,
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Frank, I'm going to stop. Hold on.
huh?